Hello, Cosmic Soul family. Ella Ivy here with Livzenastrology. And I'm here to talk about let me go ahead and remove this. This full moon in Sagittarius. Thank you so much for being here. This is an interesting full moon. Uh, I don't know if you guys can feel the energy. I didn't get to bed till I don't know what time early this morning and woke up early this morning, 5 a.m., right? So you guys can put in the comments if you relate. This full moon, especially in Sagittarius with Jupiter ruled, and especially with Jupiter just ingressing into Cancer, which we just did a breakdown for all the astrology signs. If you want to check that out on the page, that was just uploaded yesterday. And so you can check out the timestamps. And we just went over basically each zodiacal sign and how this energy can be affecting you with this ingress of Jupiter into Cancer. But today we wanted to discuss, as we're still exploring this 30-day cosmic exploration during Gemini season, the sun is still in Gemini right now. So it's shining a light on what our thoughts, how we communicate, communities, brothers and sisters, all third house matters, areas of commerce, with Taurus, Venus and Taurus right now, finances, right? There's a lot of talking going on about what? Everything. And Jupiter. And with Jupiter in Cancer, it's about matters of security, the home, how we feel secure in our bodies. And so we also talked about, just again, as we're approaching this full moon, which is exact on the 11th, which I believe is today is the 10th, right? So yeah, it'll be on the 11th, and I'll show you the exact time of when it's going to be ingressing. But for those of us who are kind of pre-cog, we can already kind of feel the energy. And so, and maybe you can put in the comments too, if you felt the shift when Jupiter went into Cancer. And I can share with you how it showed up for me yesterday after I did the podcast and the energy update with all the zodiac signs. I went outside to grounded, right? Because that's normally my practice after I transmit the energy and I'm on electronics. I gotta go take my shoes off and ground, right? That's again part of my North Node in Pisces, right? Structure, spirituality, especially after these types of transmissions. So anyway, my 17-year-old dog, Tanner, likes to follow me outside. Now, mind you, he doesn't hear really well or see really well. And so he kind of wanders around the yard and looks for a place to do his business, right? And so I really normally don't pay attention, right? I know that he'll eventually come back, and I've trusted him. I mean, we've been together for 15 years. So I know his flow and his pattern, and he knows how to get around, even though his faculties are still. But for whatever reason, yesterday, when I couldn't find him, like from my periphery, because I went outside and I was like playing with the plants and doing other things outside. And normally I see him, which is kind of like a security safety thing. But for that moment in time, I didn't see him, right? So I went to call him around, hey, Tanner, knowing that he can't hear really well. So I started clapping my hands really loud, right? Hey, Tanner. And I felt this panic, this sense of like, is he okay? Did he get on the street? Did he wander too far? And was I not paying attention? Like, it was an interesting journey and just experiencing my fears, right? About my dog, Tanner, right? My home, my base, my family. And normally I don't have reactions like this. So, and I'm so grateful I was outside grounding because I took my own advice and I said, okay, wait a minute. These are not normal thoughts. This is not a normal response. And how do you respond to this? So let's go ahead and stop, drop, and roll. Stop what you're thinking, drop into your heart, roll into the next breath and know that Tanner's okay. No matter what, just release. He's been a master teacher in helping me to release and just let things be, because he's in his younger years, especially, he was always taken off. So anyway, reflecting on the energy of the ingress of Jupiter into Cancer, I freaked out for no reason, but I was also able to see why I was freaking out, because fear, right? Fear of loss, fear of him being hurt, right? My family, my friend, fear of danger. So this is how I'm seeing potentially Jupiter in Cancer starting to express itself, is we might start having, expanded fearful thoughts about things that maybe we weren't scared of before, and how that's going to make us take action, right? Because even though there was a part of my knowing that he was okay, I still kind of walked around frantically around the yard to make sure, where he was until I saw him. And then when I saw him, there was just this tremendous relief, like, oh, okay, he's okay. right? So this is maybe how Jupiter might be showing up in Cancer for you in matters of security in the home and family, these subconscious, unconscious fears. Because for me, it's transiting in the eighth house of the unconscious, of things that are hidden, scorpionic, right? Fear of loss. Tanner is my best companion, right? We've been together for 15 years. And so I have an attachment to him. Even though at the same time, I know, that he's a free being and he's going to transition when he chooses to, there's still a part of me that's to hold on to him as long as I can, right? So there might be this interplay that we might be feeling, and especially now with the full moon in Sagittarius, as matters of security and home and feeling safe is really highlighted right now because there's a mutual reception. Sagittarius, the moon, which is ruled by Cancer, is in Sagittarius. And, again, Jupiter is in Cancer, and Jupiter's ruled by Sagittarius. So that's what astrology is called the mutual reception. It doesn't happen that often, and it won't happen again, I don't believe, for another 12 years. So again, really feeling the potency of this energy of the full moon in Sag, because historically, what do full moons represent? They represent release, things that are to be highlighted and illuminated by the moon so that you can really see what's going on that's underneath the shadows that you couldn't see in the new moon phase when there's no light, right? So the full moon is highlighting this aspect of yourself and in your chart of, well, let's look at Sagittarius. What does Sagittarius rule? We know that Sagittarius historically rules the ninth house, higher mind, beliefs. Early education would be Gemini third house, but higher education would be ninth house, its opposition, which is Sagittarius. So philosophy, again, going to college and getting our degrees, which is no accident that we talk about astrology and degree points, right? Varying degrees of consciousness, varying degrees of awareness. And so where are we being asked to look at our varying degrees of beliefs? Where do we get these beliefs? What part of our early education system or experiences in childhood was the foundation of those beliefs? And now with Sagittarius, we're being forced to look at what we believe to be true. And depending on where it's transiting in your chart, is it still true today? And maybe to even ask the questions, what is truth, right? Is truth subjective? Is it objective? What's the differences? And again, you can also, chat GPT these differences, because I also like to do some divining with chat GPT after I meditate first and I command the ship. Then I just use it as a guide, like a tool, right? It's like astrology cards or oracle cards, how I treat it. So when pondering the energy of Sagittarius and what we believe to be true and what's being highlighted for us to look at, to see what in our belief system is being shown that it just no longer resonates. There's no longer a resonance to truth in our nervous system. Because when I was stepping outside meditating before this transmission, I kept hearing, and my guides have been saying this to me for a long time. And when I talk about my guides, I talk about my inner guidance system. I'm not talking about anything external. I don't pray or worship anything, because I know that all is self. So if I'm looking at an ascended master, I'm looking at the aspect of me that is ascended in that form. And so I address that persona, or that being, if you will. I don't go outside of myself anymore. That's one thing that I believe and I know to be true that religion has taught me, having been baptized in 4 different religions, in my quest for God, or the God force energy, or whatever God was for me. And since I've worked with and had experiences with plant medicines and had certain meditative journeys that have really anchored in the fact that it's all you, all is self. I'm thinking of the movie Sucker Punch, right? If you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. And so I fell for a lot of stuff throughout my life because, I'm here to learn Sagittarius. I've got Sagittarius rising. I've also got like a 9 planet asteroid configuration, actually probably closer to 15, all between my 12th, first and second house of Sagittarius. So I've really come to anchor in Sagittarius. I've got also 2 right now natally my Sagittarius and Venus at 20 degrees, which is right on this new moon, or this full moon rather. So that's why I felt the need to talk about it, right? Because it's like Jupiter and the moon's waking me up. Say, yo, this is your first house. You need to speak on these things, right? The I am. And with Sagittarius, is that what I believe, right? I am what I believe. And so this is my own personal exploration too of, well, what do I believe about what? First house, myself. Am I carrying thoughts from, again, early childhood, or things that I learned, Gemini season, third house, that I've been carrying with me, that has been basically coloring my experience, coloring my periphery, and my way of seeing the world, if you will. Wait a minute, something, a private chat just popped up. So I'm going to see if that, okay, if you guys want to put in comments, you guys can private chat here. Apparently that's a thing. Haven't seen that. Again, still playing with technology. But again, going back to the Sagittarius gnosis of belief and truth. And again, stepping outside before this transmission, I was just sitting with nature and asking, what wants to be spoken about today in relation to belief and truth? I don't say verses, I say, because again, I'm working with polarity and trying to unify the field. If you come from this channel of livzenastrology, we come from the maxim that all is self. And so that's our foundation, right? That's the anchoring point, the anchoring point of where our periphery is in this channel. And then that's what we're projecting to really fold in any perceived division. If I'm claiming it's all me, even the parts of me that I don't like to see, the parts that piss me off. I just did a post today with the I Ching, and it's about acceptance, right? It's where we can learn to accept the reality that we see in front of us, not agree with it, but accept it as it is. And then go back and do the inner reflection work to say, if I want my reality to shift and change, if I'm projecting this reality, again, we're talking quantum energy, quantum fields, where all is connected. Now the science, the priestcraft of science are starting to talk and speak on this unification principle, the law of one, through science speak, if you will, right? Talking about the quantum field of energy, which mystics have known for centuries, for lifetimes. And our ancestors have been telling us this from the beginning. So when I was asking the question to self and nature, which is also self, the nature of me, and saying, what is truth? What is there to believe? And I heard very clearly and very distinctly that all reality is real. All reality is real to the eye of the beholder, to the one perceiving in front of them. Because in that moment in time and space, based on their vibrational frequency of where they're at in their consciousness, that is true for them. And that's not for you to take it away or to judge another's experiences, because again, we've all fractaled out into the many. And so it's still all you. So another is having an experience that you don't have to have. But it still gets to get uploaded into the field of consciousness where we all get to experience it on some level, right? So again, these are deep gnosis thoughts. These are deeply, I call myself now a metaphysical astrologer, because it seems like I always speak on the metaphysics or the esoterics of the astrology. I'm going to take a breath here and a sip, because I'm starting to get hot during this transmission. It happens sometimes when you start channeling. So I'm going to take a breath. And what I was shown and seen also in this plane of existence, right, that we live in. And this was coming in last night in meditation too. The planets, as I was speaking to the planets were showing me the etymology and the language, right? So they were showing me the word plane, then planet, and then plants, right? So when I discuss the realms and the planes of existence, and again, I see it very much like a terrarium, this type of energy we're in, because I feel like we're surrounded by water, different states of water. And I know this because I have dehumidifiers here in Kentucky, because there's so much greenery and so much forestry here, and it's been raining a lot, that I have to change these dehumidifiers twice a day. And I literally throw away or put down or outside, depending on my plants need water. Well, they don't need water because it's been raining. But I mean, gallons of water that I have to toss out every 12 hours. So I know it's like the fish that swims in water and doesn't know it. I know that we're living in some sort of watery terrarium world, and there's different phases and states to water, right? If you're starting to look at the science behind these things. So again, I'm not here to try to convince anybody of anything, because all reality is real. So if you believe it to be true, and you believe it to be true long enough and strong enough, the strongest frequency will win. So you, in fact, will experience that reality timeline, although your neighbor may not. Right? So it just depends on their frequency and their dominant vibration, right? What they're attracting into their world. So I'm thinking too of, like, there's some storms that come along, and I'm thinking of tornadoes that it sets down on certain parts of the neighborhood or the county, but it doesn't affect others, right? So I'm not saying that these people attracted it, or maybe they did, I don't know. But all I'm saying is there's concentrated energy that the whole collective can feel together, but not everybody experiences the varying degrees of the intensities of this co-collaborative related reality, right? And again, every reality is going to show up a little bit different to each individual, depending on how you are vibrating, on how you're, what radio station you're tuned into. I'm thinking of, the way showers like Robert Edward Grant and Siobhan Bomar from Secret Energy or Understanding, and other teachers who have just, again, repetitively talked about and pull back the emphasis that it's all you. And so in this full moon Sagittarius experience, the collective energy right now, because it also too, ninth house rules social media, rules publishing, it's co-ruled by Neptune, which rules movies, right? Hollywood. And I don't know exactly what's going on, because again, I have to filter through my content on where I get my information from. But I'm seeing on social media posts that there's some stuff going on in California right now. Looks like some fire, some things from ice, which is, what's going on with the border stuff, and we'll just put it that way, right? I don't want to get too polarized in this, because I'm not going political here. I'm just speaking on the energies that some people are experiencing. And not only are they experiencing it in a certain way, but they're telling the story in a way, in a certain dialogue, in a certain periphery, that's either catalyzing people, pissing people off, getting people activated. This is also Gemini. Gemini rules, again, thoughts and language, but it also rules gossiping and where we get our information from, right? So again, before you take action on anything, especially with this full moon in Sagittarius, and again, coming back to the story where I was freaking out about Tanner, and there was a part of me that knew he was okay, but I was still freaking out, right? So there could be a part of us that are freaking out about what we're perceiving or seeing in our reality timeline right now, and depending on where you're sourcing your media. So this is the opportunity, again, for you to stop, drop, and roll, to go, okay, I know I'm co-creating my reality. If you come from this channel and you're aligned to this type of energy or type of transmission, then this is for you. If not, then this might not be for you, and you might want to go to another channel. Because again, it's all about the channel that you're tuned into. And so the channel that I've been consistently tuned into since my metaphysical experiences initiating me into this oneness practice, and it is a practice, guys, was back in 2018. So my mission and the pillar that I stand on is all is self, right? That's the foundation. That's my grid point. And from there, my periphery of how I see my reality is being influenced from that perspective. So Sagittarius full moon is asking you, what is your perspective? What do you believe? What do you stand on? What are your values? How do you want to co-create your reality? Because your reality is real. If you're focused on the gloom and doom and the negativity, then that will be real for you. If you focus on the triumph and how we're growing as human consciousness, and the compassion, and how people are growing and seeing that we are really human, and that these governing systems that were once a stronghold, or say the parental figure, is no, we don't need it anymore, right? We're ascending or growing or maturing. This is Saturn and Aries. into a whole nother higher octave of the version of humanity of who we've come to become. Again, if you believe that. So this is the question. The question is, what do you believe? Because what you believe will be. It'll be the live or it'll be the lie. Look at the language, look at the etymology. And so it's going to work for you either way, because that's how powerful the mind is, right? Aquarius, Pluto and Aquarius, which I find very intriguing. We're going to go into a deep webinar also outside in nature. I was told, going to the ancestral roots, even of our planets, right? The planes of existence, which hold the planetary energies. And I look at the language, right? The T is always the cross of matter. So it's, even if you study the symbology of astrology, you see that each of the symbols, it's almost like a cymatical form that's showing you the energy and how the energy is transmitted. I'm thinking of two, like Elohim. He's a breatharian, and he talks about one of his videos years ago that he used to be in the Navy and in a Marine ship, and he was an electrical guy that worked on the electrical systems there on the submarine, and that they would have to write codes for one another, and they would use symbols, right? So he said, he even showed the sign of astrology, or the sign of Aquarius, right? The two jagged lines means electricity. So in order to speak to the next electrician or the next person working on that piece of machinery, he would write it in code. So it led me to really go down the rabbit hole of that, if that's what our ancestors were showing us, to transcend language, right? Because again, language is a program. How we use the language, how we speak upon things, we're always spellcasting either onto ourselves or the other. So this is why the inner work is so important. If you believe it, that to be the change, you literally have to speak on change differently. You have to speak on yourself differently. So this is also Aries, Saturn and Aries. So as we're, morphing through this field, let me go ahead and screen share the astrology and take a look at, what I'm looking at here as far as, let me get off of here. Here we go. Minimize. Okay, there we go. So I'm going to screen share, guys. Here we are. Okay. So here's the astrology. This is the exact full moon point we can see here. I've got Aries on the ascendant, first house. It kind of follows like a time clock. So this is the symbol for the sun. The sun is in Gemini at 20 degrees at 38 minutes, right? So when you're looking at an astrology chart, this is how you dissect and interpret the chart, again, using the language. And it's opposite, exactly 20 degrees in the symbol of Sagittarius, 37 minutes. Oh, it shifted on me. Here we go, 38. Okay, 38 minutes right there. So we can see that's happening at 3:42 a.m., 16 minutes for the program that I'm working with, which is Astrology. And so you can see here, what are the implications? We know that, the full moon illuminating the ninth house. We talked about ninth house matters. Sagittarius, travel, religion, philosophy, archaeology. So we're starting to see what's happening with the Giza pyramids and archaeological matters that are coming to the forefront of perhaps ancient technologies that were once predominant by our ancestors are now being found again because of cataclysmic events. Things have gone under the soil. This was also when Pluto was in Capricorn, right? Things that were hidden. And so Pluto still rules things that are hidden. And in Aquarius, it's about technology. So the hidden technologies that we had forgotten about, again, amnesia, we came from a state of amnesia, is being reactivated right now through the collective consciousness. And so, I'm even thinking too, going back to like kindergarten, middle school, high school, right? If we're looking at the history books and thinking about what you were taught during that age period. I'm a Gen Xer, so I was taught a lot about the 60s and the hippie movement. We even had days where we would dress like hippies, right? And celebrate these different time frames in history, which is great. But perhaps with this full moon illuminating in Sagittarius, is what we were taught, again, early in life, does that still hold true today for what we know now? And with the new information that we're being given through these hidden technologies that our ancestors didn't even know about. So they were crafting stories and telling tales about their own experiences and maybe not having the full picture, right? Because Sagittarius is the higher octave view, right? Likes to pull out, just like Aquarius. I think of like a Google lens, right? You go really, really deep and you can see, the landscape, and then you pull out and you can see, again, the bigger picture. And so with Jupiter and Sagittarius, it's all about the bigger picture. And where has our bigger pictures perhaps been distorted, and now is just being broken, right? I'm seeing like the mirror that we're looking at is just shattering apart, right? These constructs of what we perceive reality to be. Because again, we've got Mercury in Cancer, which is how we think. So even matters of the home, right? Like I'm even thinking of genetics. Like we talk about, as the noise is coming in, but there's a hot topic about cloning, right? And people are being cloned. And I'm thinking about, when we have children, are they just little clones of us, right? Because you can see the genetics. Like I look at my son sometimes, and sometimes he looks a lot like me, and sometimes he looks a lot like his dad. And I think, gosh, genetics is so interesting. I'm like, we are cloning ourselves in a way when we give birth, right? And the language, that's what it is. It's what we're doing, right? So are we allowing to see ourselves and the reality perhaps in a new way? And coming back again to Pluto and Aquarius, have these ancient technologies that we thought were ancient and we're told were very, very old or obsolete or didn't exist, were they really the technology of the future? Has AI been here the whole effing time? And they're just now disclosing it to us, right? Because I'm thinking about disclosure, again, Pluto, things that are hidden. And with Sagittarius, it's about things coming up to be seen. A light is being shown right now. Because we have a square happening right now with the North Node in Pisces. Pisces is about illusion. It's about, I'm thinking of almost like have you guys ever seen the Percy Jackson series? When I forget what of the episodes, but they had to go, save one of their friends and then got caught. And like it almost looked like a Las Vegas style type of establishment, and they were eating the lotus flowers. And next thing you know, they've lost time because they were just so enamored with the lotus flowers that they lost their mission, right? They forgot what they were really there for, their purpose, because they got lost in the play of narcotics, of substances that take you out of this reality, right? To take you into different realms, which is very Pisces, right? And so we're seeing too on the big stage things that are happening with big pharmaceuticals, right? And how people are having a relationship or have had relationship with certain substances. And some of it may have been, nefariously introduced. Who knows? This is all just for education purposes only. I have to preface that as I'm stating, again, this is just for entertainment. But can we entertain the fact that we may have been induced into certain beliefs, right? Things out of our control. Even in early childhood, we know if you study any of Joe Dispenza's work or Dr. Bruce Lipton's work with epigenetics, and how basically our subconscious structure is formed when we're in theta between the ages of 0 and 7 years old. That's, little children, little beings, when we were that young, that our mind was just in that programmable state of theta, right? So anything that was programmed during that time was what we believe to be true. It's what's ruling the roost in our unconscious programs right now. And so, with Jupiter in Cancer, it's about foundation. Again, what did you learn? What did you see? What were you shown? What were you programmed to believe? What were your parents listening to? How were they speaking about love, money, politics, sex, death, taxes, higher philosophy? I know for me, being a Gen Xer and just coming from the ley line and the timeline that I came from, I was a latch and key kid, right? And I watched a lot of television. That was my babysitter. So I have a lot of programming. And I know that from the age of, I believe, 4 is when I first started watching television, consistently, because again, my mom was a single mom. My parents broke up when I was 4. And so she had to work a lot. And so again, had to go home, take care of myself. And that was my babysitter, right? So I understand and understand that there's programs running on in my deep unconscious that have basically helped curate this reality. Because, I'm willing to ask the question, well, who is programming? What was the agenda of those people that were programming, right? The people that were responsible for the programming. What did they know about my mind that I didn't know already? And we're just now getting downloads about how impressionable and how the mind is truly a technology. It is an advanced technology, more advanced than we can even perceive, right? Because again, the program has taught us not to perceive our greatness, if you will, or only allowed us to see a certain periphery of what we're capable of, right? I'm thinking of the story of when the scientists, the priestcraft of science tell us you can only use 10% of your brains. And then you have like a Bruce Lipton coming on and speaking his science speak, saying, actually, we use 100% of our brains, and this is why. And then he goes into the neonucleides, and he goes into the science, right? Stuff that I don't understand or I haven't anchored in yet. So, but he's willing to tell another story, right? So it's like, wait a minute, you have a certain group of people saying that that I only use 10% of my brains, and now you have other new science is saying I use 100%, but just from a different periphery. Like, which is it, right? So, as I was again sitting in contemplation last night, I thought, well, if I don't know what the truth is, right, I'm going to sit here and I'm going to feel into it. What feels true to me? And so I sat, and then all of a sudden, my inner child, Chiron and Aries, started imagining, well, what if I can use 100% of my brain? What would a person who used 100% of her brain look like? And then I thought of the movie Lucy, right? Go back to the program, to relatability. So again, seeing how the program is so embedded into our culture and into our world, there's somebody telling a story. It's either you telling the story about this reality or you're listening to other people tell the story of this reality. And it's the people in authority we're the ones that have been in a way worshiping, right? Because we hold them in higher esteem because they've done all the work, right? They're doing the science, they put in the hard labor as work Saturn to have these medical discoveries, to have these scientific discoveries, and they speak in a language that I don't understand. So that must put them in a higher octave conversation. So that's going to minimize me. So I don't know much. So I'm going to believe, what these higher authority figures are saying, because that's the truth, right? So, but does this still hold true today? Do you still believe that today? I'm asking me. And for me, it's been a whole other conversation when I get out of my own way and when I anchor into my inner knowing, what I do know to be true, which is all is self, because I've had a direct experience with it, right? I've had a direct experience with oneness. And so from that, a tree trunk rooted system periphery, now my branches can grow and see, okay, well, if all self, let me see how it's all self. Let me see how self is playing itself out with these polarizing energies. I think of the North Pole and the South Pole, right? So when we're here in the North Pole in the Southern Hemisphere, that means the South Pole is going through their winter and we're going through our summer. We're having different experiences. We're having polarized experiences, right? Differing opposite experiences. But that doesn't mean we're separate. We're still part of the same unifying field, just having opposing experiences. In this Gemini season, that's what the Gemini, if you look at the two, right? It's about opposition. It's about polarity. It's about opposing forces within us, the masculine, the feminine. The archetype that rules Gemini is Mercury, and Mercury is considered hermaphroditic, right? Mer is the ocean, and I see cure, right? Curie. So really the healing is how we think, the mind, in our inner waters, which is also Pisces. So yeah, I did a lot of deep dive with really the polarizing effects of our own nature, the masculine, the feminine, which again, I look at masculine as being electrical and feminine being magnetic. So as we are bioelectrical beings, right? Bioelectrical magnetic beings, that we have these polarizing frequencies at varying degrees within us. And it's just how are they playing themselves out in our charts, right? Our individuated charts, which again, this is the collective chart here for June 11th, but then also in our individuated charts, right? So I can show you here the second chart this is my own personal chart here. You can see where, for me, I've got Venus at 20 degrees Sagittarius right there with the moon. I'm conjuncting that ninth house. So I felt the need, right? I'm magnetizing the experience of speaking in reality and belief in a new way. I've also got the North Node, what I've come to learn here, right? So I've got to learn to speak on these things, on what are beliefs and what do we believe to be true, because that's the reality that we're going to be tuning into, like a radio station. So I think of it too, like if, for example, you've had the radio station playing really, low in the subconscious background to music that you don't really like, that actually it's like nails in a chalkboard when you listen to this type of music. You're like, why the F is that music playing in the background? I don't like that music. Why am I listening to it? Right? Why am I allowing my consciousness? Well, because you didn't know. Again, the programs were laid down foundational roots between in the third house. There might have been tunes and notes and stations of like death metal, and nothing against death metal, but I'm just saying if you don't like death metal and that's what you learned, it's been playing in the subconscious program this whole time. You're like, shit, I gotta change the station. I don't like death metal. I like yacht rock. Okay. I'm a yacht rocker, which I've discovered recently. I love yacht rock. Really puts me in a great mood. You can tell my mood with the music I'm listening to, right? I do tend to go backwards in time with my music, unless I'm listening to specific frequencies or, binaural beats of that nature. But yeah, so again, knowing what your beliefs are, knowing what your foundation is that still true for you today? I'm going to quit screen sharing my chart because you don't need to be seeing that. But so again, this axis point, what is it illuminating? Where is it transiting in your chart? What do you need to see and question and be gentle about and ready to let go of in terms of what you believe to be true? This square is happening with Pisces, so it's asking us to drop the illusions of what we think we know. I've had toxic relationships where I knew that this being was toxic for me, and I lied to myself because I had the illusion. Again, fear, Pisces, I didn't want to lose him. And so what did I do? I lied to myself, right? I deceived myself about the level of toxicity that this being was bringing and we were bringing to each other. It wasn't just a one-way street, right? Because this was a karmic relationship. So this was an activation in my own dark shadow shit that he invoked in me. He catalyzed, right, to bring all these dark energies out so that I can alchemize them and transform them and not carry this karmic baggage with me to the next incarnation or to the next ring or field or plane of existence, right? Plane, planet, whatever you want to say. However you see your reality, because I'm even questioning how I see astrology, right? I'm seeing it more like planes and realms rather than planets. And I'll have to go into another webinar about that download that I received. Because again, if you're living in a terrarium, then space is not what we think. And space is actually, from what I see, water, just a different form of it, a different density of water. And I look at the plasma body, right? Because I've been really working with water since I've been here in Kentucky. I've actually been working with cymatics and taking pictures. You can go into my Facebook page and see all the cymatical forms that I've played with water, talking to water, right? And how the water crystals will actually change shapes based on my vibration and frequency, right? And just completely shift the whole dimension of water. So knowing to me that water is conscious, it has a consciousness. We get baptized in water, we bathe in water, we drink water, right? So, and this, I'm drinking coconut water, which is structured water. Again, going into cymatics, and it's all about geometry, right? Look at the middle of this chart. These are geometric formations. You can see here trines, triangles, harmonious. You can see squares, which are what are considered harder aspects. It's almost like a square. How I see a square is when you're sitting in a chair for a long time and your legs start to fall asleep, you get uncomfortable. You got to move. You got to change something so you can start circulating again. That's what squares are. Squares are something that needs to move, that needs to change and shift, right? Just like your legs getting stagnant or your legs falling asleep because you've been sitting in that position too long. So perhaps we've been sitting in the position too long of what? Our beliefs, of what we thought to be true. And with the square happening, the nodal point is saying, look, you have to shift it. Something has to change in your belief system. The moon is illuminating and shining its light on perhaps early thought form patterns that somehow got embedded, whether consciously, unconsciously, purposely, or unpurposely. Don't know. That's for you to discover and rectify within yourself. But this is the open conversation that wants to be had right now, because there's so much happening on the world stage that people are really questioning, like, what reality am I in? What are the people in governing bodies that I supposedly elected? I didn't elect them, by the way. And I'm not gonna get political. I told myself I wasn't, but either way, I didn't vote at all. By the way, I took myself off the system completely because I saw it collapsing, and I didn't want to add my energy to it. And that's my own belief. Whatever you believe about my belief, it's all good. Just don't throw some hate. And if you're going to put anything in the comments, again, I'm going to have to remove that, because it's not what this is about. This is about questioning our beliefs, and are we willing to put our energy and time and focus on things that maybe no longer make sense to believe, right? So again, going across the board with how we have set up technology, how we have set up governments, how we have set up finances, education, healthcare. Do we believe, based on what we're seeing now and what we know now to be true within ourselves, as we're starting to do the deeper dive and question our own belief systems, do we believe that these outward I would say reflections, outward programs, systems that we created, are they still feasible? Are they still viable? Or do they need to collapse? Does something need to shift? Do we need to rewrite the story? Right? Do we need to rewrite not just his story, but her story, their story, right? Our story. Does that need to be shifted right now, real time? Well, yeah, it can be. And it's going to be based on how you speak on your reality, right? How you want to see your reality to be true. And to speak on those things that you know are true for you. What are your values? Again, this is Venus in Taurus right now. It's asking you to know your values and to speak on your values, because Taurus rules the throat. So that we can all get really clear as this falsity of where we have been in the human collective of our belief system, right? And based on the program of what we learned through media, through television, through, gosh, I'm so hot right now, gosh. Woo, I'm burning up. Lots transmitting. Through Hollywood, right? And are we willing to acknowledge that there is some stuff going on that just, it don't make no dang sense. It don't make no sense. It doesn't make sense. And you're trying to figure it out. You're trying to put a square peg in a round hole and realizing, no, that configuration doesn't work, right? So we got to get reconfigured. We're getting reconfigured of the mind. We're architecting a new reality based on how we're speaking about it. And we're doing it by speaking more and more on our truth, on our values, what we truly believe. And being also willing to say, I don't know what I believe, right? Being willing to step into this level of curiosity and even questioning your own self. Well, I used to believe this back in the day, but I don't know if I still believe that, because everything I'm seeing in my reality doesn't support that anymore. So I'm going to go out in nature and find out what truth is for me. And for me, that's what I'm seeing too, because Sagittarius rules natural law, right? Natural land, air, and water. And so nature holds the codes of millions of years of evolution. So when you want to know the truth about your reality, you want to know the nature of you, go out in nature. There's a conversation to be had there, just from my own experience. And again, South Node in Virgo is all about the body, health. Talk to your body. Your body will tell you. Your cells will tell you. You know, if there's conflicting energies, it'll show you the parasitic energies that might have been overriding your system. Actually, it's called to do a meditation. I stood outside with my arms up like a Y, right? Because when you know your why, then you're steadfast in your knowing, right? So I had my hands up in the Y and surrender, because that's also a sign of surrender, releasing, trusting what's for me. And I was able to call forth and ask that all parasitic energies that had embedded themselves in any of my organ systems or any part of my body to be gently released and alchemized and sent back to source with grace and ease, right? So that night I had a weird attack on my leg, and I could feel like, because I've been doing parasite cleanses, especially during the full moon, because I know in full moons, parasites hatch, eggs hatch. Statistically, with animals or birds or insects, the full moon will tell you what's to be born, what's to be illuminated, which is life. That's why there's a lot of pregnancies, a lot of children born during full moons. Anyway, I digress. Going back to being able to release the parasites, right? So if I know that there are parasites within me that have been deeply embedded, probably in my organ systems for a long time, probably since I was a child, right? Because my family didn't do parasites cleanse. None of us did. We ate junk food and played outside and had animals around and all kinds of things, right? So again, as you know better, you do better. And as I'm getting older and wiser and getting more into my body, and again, remembering the South Node in Virgo, it's like, wow, if I really want to expand my spiritual nature, Pisces, I got to really be in my body in a new way and feel good in my body in a new way. So when my body kind of went out of whack, during this parasite cleanse, man, I could feel them like holding on for dear life. And I just kept sending them support and love. It's like, you know what? It's okay, parasites. You're ready to go. I'm ready to have you go. Our karmic contract's done. We're all released from our karma. You don't have to feed on this energy anymore. It's like, again, you don't have to be so violent with these disagreeable aspects of self, right? Although we've been taught to be that way. That was the history of how Mars action was taking action, right? The soldiers that were sold in a certain way. Again, this is entertainment purposes only. But now we're coming back to, again, where we were inverted in our perception now because of where we are in the Kali Yuga phase of consciousness, coming out of that darkened phase, the forgetful amnesia phase of where we are in consciousness. Now we're coming back online to perhaps a new way of seeing, a new belief system, a new way of perceiving our reality. Because what you perceive or believe will translate eventually into knowing, but that's only through experience. And so this is an invitation to perhaps go out and have new experiences, travel around. Sagittarius is about higher learning, travel, exploration, foreign foods, foreign lands, different cultures. Like I said, when I was doing the Christian thing, I was baptized in 4 different religions. And since then, I've been to a Native American, moon ceremony, and I've done just water rites ceremonies. I've played with the fairies. I've got Sagittarius. I'm here, Sagittarius first half. I'm here to explore it all, right? Because for me, again, my value and my gnosis, and based on my own personal experience, my knowing, Aquarius, is I know, like I know, like I know, and I have that in my 3rd house, that we are all part of this one collective energy. And there's just different aspects, different colorations, different prisms, if you like. I'm looking at this card too, at the chakra system, right? Different colorations. Think of root rays too. This is like a tree, and there's rings around it. So there's just, different levels, different planes that the planets exist on that may, even again, we might have new scientific language being spoken about astronomy and astrology and the extraterrestrial, right? The extra earth, the extra territory that might be existing on this plane of existence that we called a round globe, that might not be either or. It might be round and flat. Who knows? Again, I'm willing to release everything I thought I know and was taught as I'm starting to expand and explore my own gnosis and doing my own deep dive. And again, being out in nature, showing me there's symmetry and there's geometry patterns that when you know to look for it, there is coherence there. And so it's about getting more coherent in your body, more coherent in your voice, in your breath, in your intention, and your thoughts. And so allowing yourself to maybe do a cleanse, again, purge, release. Sagittarius full moon, it's about releasing. Full moon, all full moons in general, about releasing. So tonight I'm going to use the fire element. I'm going to quit screen sharing here. I'm going to use the fire element tonight because we're in a Sagittarius. Sagittarius is ruled by fire, which is about will. It's about our will to do good. It's inspiration. And so I would invite you to go and do a fire ceremony, maybe write down some old beliefs, some old ways of perceiving and thinking that are ready to just be cleared up and to be alchemized and to be shifted to make room for the new knowing that wants to come through. And so it may not be easy, but it's necessary. Transformation usually is. So if you can lean into transforming how you think, how you perceive, and be willing to love yourself through it all, no matter what. Even if you have to hold your inner child and go, I got you, baby girl, I got you. Because again, this is Chiron in Aries and it's trining this moon. So it's inviting us to explore and to feel safe in our bodies and to know your principles, right? Know what you stand on. I got this tattoo years ago when I first turned 40. And it's my one and only tattoo. And I knew if I was going to commit to it, because I was really getting serious into my yogic practice. And I came across this mantra that it was like instant for me. It was like, oh yes, this is my value. And it's Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. You read it from right to left. And my interpretation and how I've anchored it in is, may all beings everywhere be happy and free, and let everything that I do and say and think contribute to that happiness and freedom. And so that's my mantra. That's my principle. That's my foundation. What are yours? What do you believe? What are your values? Right? What are you standing on? Is it quicksand, or is it solid earth like the oak tree? Again, these are just questions. Again, when you ask different questions, you get a different quest, a different experience, a different hologram, if you will, a different game that you can play with yourself. Is there's only one of us here, if you believe that. All right, I feel complete in this transmission. Thank you guys so much for playing. Thank you for being here. Again, do some sort of ritual. Allow yourself to question your own beliefs. Don't take things personally. The Sagittarius tends to be happy-go-lucky, right? Let's just love each other. Let's quit judging each other, rules the law. Get into natural law, natural land, air, and water. Go out in nature. She'll show you the true. She'll show you your true nature. And it's beyond what the mind can conceive. It's way much more magical and yet more simple than that. So, all right, guys, thank you for playing. Thank you for being here in this cosmic conversation. If you liked any of the content, you found any value, and if there's any friends or family that might also align with this type of thinking, this oneness consciousness through astrology, I consider myself a metaphysical and an intuitive astrologer, because I pull from all different types of gnosis and different studies, different sects, again, looking through the golden thread of truth in all religions, in all dialogues, in all ways of being, because there's a unifying thread, and it's gold. I see it as gold that unites us all. So that's what I look for, and in my periphery and everything I do and say and think. So if you have any friends and family that you think would align with this, please like, subscribe, share. It's free for you to like it. And again, it's just expanding the channel on this Jupiter day. I'm really excited about sharing and opening up and having this type of dialogue with my fellow astrology community who loves to speak the language of astrology. So let's keep speaking, let's keep sharing, let's keep growing and expanding. And we do so by dropping off old baggage and old ways of being and believing. So yeah, I love you guys. This is not the easy journey, but it's the necessary journey. And I wish you well during this transit. So much